Apply Grant Workshop. Next slide, please. So if this is your first time using Google Meet, we have a little tutorial for you. There are a series of buttons at the bottom of your screen. If you would like to mute yourself, and we suggest that you do, just tap that little microphone button and that will either turn you on or off. If it's red, that means it's off. If it's gray, that means it's on. So hopefully all of your little mics are turned red. Same with the camera, which is the square right next to that. Please turn your camera off to facilitate better data flow. We find that if too many of your faces are showing, then we have a little bit slower speed on the data transfer. There are 3 dots for settings. That's where you can set your background, change your resolution, different things like that. And then the red button that we don't want you to touch is the leave meeting button. So please keep that red and stick with us for the duration of the How to Apply workshop. And then over on the right-hand side, there's some icons, one for attendees that helps you see everyone who's here. And we do have a couple of our staffers today taking attendance, so we know who is here. And the little square with the lines through it is the chat box. Please keep that open and type in any questions that you might have. Our team is looking at those questions and trying to keep us aware of how we can provide more information and be more helpful. And Diana from the River District has demonstrated how to use the chat box. So thank you for that, Diana. Next slide, please. Our agenda for today, we're going to go through the background of the agency and the Virginia Main Street program. Then we're going to cover 3 grants in this How to Apply workshop: the Community Vitality Grant, the Downtown Investment Grant, and the Financial Feasibility Grant. There is going to be a separate presentation this afternoon for the Resurgence Grant, which is one-time funding available this year and slightly different parameters than our standard 3 grant programs. Then we'll talk about funding priorities, grant administration, and go through some questions and answers. And I hope that you will enjoy meeting all of our new team members throughout this presentation. Virginia Main Street is now a team of 6 people, so I am the program manager. Then we have Kyle Meyer, who some of you may know. Kyle is a long-term Virginia Main Street team member. And then next to him in seniority is Zachary Whitlow. Zachary's been with Virginia Main Street for about 3 years. Then we have 3 new people who've come on in the last 12 months. So Nicole Childress was the first one to join. She came on May of last year. And then we have Blair Bergler, who joined us June of last year. And our newest face, and probably new to many of you on this call, is Ellie Dudding McFadden, who joined us in October. So this is Team Virginia Main Street. We are ready for a big year, and we're hoping to have lots of great grant projects coming through our pipeline this year. Next slide, please. So DHCD is committed to creating safe, affordable, and prosperous communities to live, work, and do business in Virginia. Next slide. And within DHCD, Virginia Main Street is a program of the Community Vitality Office, part of the Economic Development and Community Vitality Division. So as a Virginia Main Street coordinating program, we hold the standard for the national program at the state level, and we help to lead powerful grassroots networks and communities. Virginia Main Street really is a community of communities that are seeking excellence in grassroots, community-based economic development focused on historic commercial districts. And we are very thankful to have everyone on this call today, knowing that many of you are also committed to those ideals. Next slide, please. So the grants, just to review again, we'll be covering community vitality grants, downtown investment grants, financial feasibility grants in this presentation, and then in the one in the afternoon, we'll cover Virginia Business District Resurgence Grants. We call them Resurgence Grants for short, just to reduce the mouthful of marbles. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to kick it off with community vitality grants.
And that is me. So community vitality grants, or CVGs for short, are designed to help assist Main Street communities and organizations achieve their downtown revitalization goals. CVG projects are really momentum generators that spark Main Street efforts and create long-lasting positive impact in your downtown or neighborhood commercial district. CVG grants are available for downtown revitalization activities, which covers a gamut of projects really in both design, placemaking, organization. So things like your organization development, strategic planning, work planning, budget development, market studies, your website development, different design projects, entrepreneurial support programs, wayfinding development, different vitality projects, and consulting services that can contribute to your downtown. Except for 10% or less of grant admin fees, CVG funds are not available for any kind of continuing operations or any other expenses that are just ongoing. Funds are not available for predictable expenses, which the community or the organization could have reasonably planned. So things like your general marketing materials, financial management, and expenses, etc. Next slide, please. So who is eligible? So CVGs are for exploring Main Street and mobilizing Main Street communities. The maximum award amount right now is $15,000 for EMS and $30,000 for mobilizing. There is a 2-to-1 grant match, and in-kind contributions do count as a part of that grant match. And we've got your timeline. All the applications for CVG grants are due on April 28th of this year. Projects have to be underway no later than October 1st, and projects have to be completed by May 31st. Next slide. All of our grants are scored on a 100-point scale. So grant funds are limited, and only those proposals exceeding the minimum 70-point threshold are considered for funding. Funds will be allocated from the top scoring until all funds are exhausted. A strong application will clearly explain how the proposed project or service is an effective organizational or economic development strategy for the commercial district. Proposed organizational development projects via consultant services must advance the sustainability of the local organization, and any proposed economic vitality, promotion, or design-related projects must also directly support existing work plans and identified strategies for improving your functionality or usage of your downtown district. Projects or services that enhance or complement other DHCD resources the organization or community is currently receiving will be prioritized. Additionally, competitive applications will make it clear that the applicant is capable of successfully completing this service or grant project. And on this slide here, you see how our scoring rubric works. So impact is the most important one, and it goes down from there. The next slide, perfect, already on it. Let's see here. Any applications do have to include supporting documents. So your vision and mission statement for your organization, if you have one. Any community or organizational strategic plans that outline your goals for your commercial district. Appropriate and effective work plans for your project that includes your tasks, the individuals that are responsible, timeline, and a budget. A template is hyperlinked in our grant manual, so make sure you refer back to that. And also a project budget that includes all project-related line items for expenditures and funding sources. And again, we've got a template hyperlinked in the grant manual. All of the leveraging funds, including contracts, memorandums of understanding, award letters, and other documentation confirms the commitment of other resources for the project, should also be included, along with documentation and calculations for both in-kind contributions and volunteer hours. So depending on the project type, you may want to also include additional supporting documents such as maps, project renderings, your program design, any RFPs, requests for proposals that you've got out, and local regional development plans and studies. And on the next slide, we have some information about some community vitality grant projects that we've had. Nelson County and Livingston did a market study, and that was building upon previous CDBG, which is Community Development Block Grants. So they received a $7,000 CVG to hire a consultant to conduct a market and retail gap analysis of the Livingston Commercial District. In the middle, we have Petersburg, and they leveraged another $7,000 CVG grant to implement a community listening and planning project to identify what its residents wanted most for downtown and how to achieve it. On the furthest side here, we have Pulaski on Main, who did a pocket park and mural project. Say that 5 times fast. They had a $7,500 CVG grant that supplemented the cost of a mural in a new pocket park in Pulaski's downtown historic commercial district, which was originally funded by another community development block grant through DHCD. And that is really the long and short of community vitality projects. Are there any questions? Okay, then we will kick it over to downtown investment grants.
Thanks, Nicole. So downtown investment grants, or DIGs, allow Main Street organizations to take on unique one-time projects that measurably, creatively, and sustainably advance the organization's goals and strategies. These grants often involve multiple downtown partners, and they require active leadership and participation by the organization's board, committees, and volunteers. In terms of how these funds can be used, DIGs can fund complete projects, provide seed funding for new ones, and provide gap financing that allows a project to become fully funded. Keep in mind, though, except for 10% or less of grant administration fees, DIG funds may not be used for operational expenses, such as payroll or any other ongoing predictable organizational expenses for which the board could have reasonably planned. Also, DIG funds cannot be simply passed through the Main Street organization to third parties as well. Next slide. DIGs are available only to our designated advancing Virginia Main Street organizations, and they must be administered through the local Main Street organization itself. The maximum award per organization or project is $75,000, and for every $2 of grant funding applied for, there must be $1 in matching funds committed. All grant applications and supporting documentation must be submitted via CAMS by 11:59 p.m. on April 28th, and all projects must be underway no later than October 1st. Important to note that DIG projects must be completed, all disbursements made, and final reports on project activities and outcomes submitted no later than May 31st, 2024. Next slide. So just like CDBG grants, DIG applicants are scored on a 0 to 100 point scale. It's important to note that grant funds are limited, and only those proposals exceeding the minimum 70 point threshold will be considered for funding. DIG funds will be allocated from top scoring until all funds are exhausted. So with that being said, a strong application will clearly explain how the proposed project will result in measurable economic improvement in the Main Street District. It should support the community's vision for encouraging the private investment necessary for the economic revitalization of the Main Street District, clearly align with the mission of the Main Street organization, address one or more of the organization's transformation strategies or strategic planning goals for the Main Street District, empower board and committee volunteers, and finally help develop and capitalize on the expertise and financial support of the organization's stakeholders and community partners. Where appropriate, communities are encouraged to utilize consultant services to develop design projects, as well as the planning and organizational support components for economic vitality projects. Next slide. In terms of supporting documents, DIG applications must include the community's vision statement for the Main Street District and mission statement for the Main Street organization, a current list of the organization's board and committee/project team members, the organization's strategic plan and or work plan that lists the board's transformation strategies or focus areas for the Main Street District, an effective and appropriate work plan for the project that includes tasks, responsible individuals, timeline, and budget. And finally, a project budget that includes all project-related line items for expenditures and funding sources. And for this and the project work plan, a template is hyperlinked in the Virginia Main Street Grant Manual for your usage. And to note, verification of leverage funds, including contracts and other documentation that confirms the commitment of other resources for the project, should be included, along with documentation and calculations for in-kind contributions and volunteer hours, which can be used for match. And depending on the project type, just like CBG grants, you might also consider including additional supporting docs like maps and project renderings, program designs, RFPs, request for proposal, and local and or regional economic development plans and or studies. Next slide. So for some inspiration, here are a few examples of successful DIG projects, which you can also learn more about on the Virginia Main Street blog. For the Farmville Downtown Partnership Wayfinding Project, a $25,000 dig helped Farmville fabricate and install a new downtown wayfinding system for their historic commercial district, really ensuring that once a visitor reaches downtown, a clear directional and parking lot identification system exists to help them get oriented in the historic downtown area. For the Love Orange, Virginia Commemorative African American Park Project, a $25,000 dig supported the creation of a park that illuminates the history of the town of Orange's former African American commercial district, as well as commemorates the contributions of local African Americans. A formerly overgrown and underutilized lot is now an attractive and inviting spot for residents, workers, and visitors to spend time. And finally, for the Stanton Downtown Development Association Little Things project, a $25,000 dig funded the establishment of a little street front space in downtown Stanton, along with the purchase of a little truck and little cart. All three worked in conjunction to showcase their community's history and unique assets while supporting downtown businesses, organizations, products, services, and happenings. And now I'll turn things over to Kyle to talk more about our financial feasibility grants.
Thank you very much, Zachary. So we're going to veer a little bit here from a little pattern we had going on with the CBG and the Downtown Investment Grant. So the financial feasibility grant is a grant to help fund exploration of the highest and best use of an underutilized commercial building in the district. So it allows Main Street communities to work with owners of significant white elephant buildings or structures with non-productive upper floor space. These buildings could be functionally vacant or deteriorated properties whose poor condition creates a notion of physical and economic blight in the surrounding area, which is often a deterrent for development. This grant also allows for small-scale development by providing feasibility resources to new or beginning developers for buildings within the district. The purpose is to identify the highest and best use of such properties and develop any necessary plans or studies that will assist the owner in developing the property or allow the Main Street organization to shop the rehabilitation and reuse of the property to private developers or investors. So there's a marketing element to this. Financial feasibility grants typically fund the development of any necessary plans or studies, such as your preliminary design reports and renderings, building code and zone assessments, pro forma development and construction estimates, environmental reports, market demand studies, and gap financing research. And just like with the other two grants, except for 10% of the grant or less can be used for administration fees, financial feasibility grant funds will not be awarded for marketing or printing costs, continuing operations, program administration, payroll, debts, or any other operational expenses. Next slide. So who's eligible? So grant funds are available to all Virginia Main Street communities on a first come, first served basis. So all of our participating tiers have access to this. Grants can be administered through the designated local Main Street organization or local government. Award amounts will be based on expressed project needs and the two-tiered structure outlined in the grant manual. So it's divided up into phases should you choose to do just a portion of it or all of what the grant is designed to do. The maximum award amount per organization or project is $50,000, so twice what we've had in the past. No match is required. However, it may be necessary to just secure additional leverage funding from other sources in order to meet all components needed to determine feasibility and full assessment of the property. So point is, 50,000 might not be enough if you've got a very large structure. Let's see, where did I leave off? Applications will open on February 1st of 2023. All grant applications and supporting documentation must be submitted in CAMS. Applications will be viewed and awarded on a first come, first served basis and will remain open until program funding is fully obligated. All projects must be underway no later than October 1st of 2023. Projects must be completed, all disbursements made, and final reports on project activities and outcomes submitted no later than May 31st of 2024. So you'll see a pattern in these in the timeline here. No organization and or locality will be allowed to have more than one open financial feasibility grant at a time. Next slide. So, as you've seen, the grant applications are scored on a 100-point scale. Grant funds are limited and only those proposals exceeding the minimum 70-point threshold will be considered for funding. Funds will be allocated from top scoring until all funds are exhausted. A strong application will clearly explain how the redevelopment of the proposed building would be catalytic for the Main Street community. Meaning how we want one that clearly explains what the impacts will be within the district. What do you anticipate as far as utilizing the building, creating jobs or investment? The application should demonstrate that the successful redevelopment of this property will have significant economic benefits for the Main Street community and will result in a stronger, more diversified business environment in the Main Street district or increased downtown housing. An effective application will indicate the strong likelihood of redevelopment based on owner willingness or identified willing developers, and that these feasibility funds are necessary to move the project forward. Of course, we're looking for this to be that catalyst for development in downtown. So having a interested property owner or developers in a pipeline certainly would help to actually make the redevelopment happen. Funds are for use in projects directly benefiting the Virginia Main Street community. Next slide. So applications must include these supporting documents: the community's vision statement for the Main Street district and mission statement for the Main Street organization, if applicable, a current list of team members and what their roles will be. Identify any team members that have not yet been selected and the timeline for when they will be brought onto the team. Provide documentation of the property owner's willingness to participate. That is a very important element here. An effective and appropriate work plan for the project that includes tasks, responsible individuals, timeline, and budget. And there is that template that's hyperlinked in the grant manual. And this is just so that we can see and have confidence that you've thought through the project and understand the different steps that need to happen in order to complete the study. So also needed a project budget that includes all project-related line items for expenditures and funding sources. A template is also hyperlinked in the grant manual. Then any photographs of the building and a map showing the condition and location of the property must be submitted. We need to see it. So any studies or additional background information that have already been completed on the building is also helpful. So the more information, the better to help us understand what you plan to take on. So next slide. So here's some great examples. And as you see, when you have the slide deck, once we post it online, these different stories are hyperlinked. They are available within the Virginia Main Street blog. So one of the projects we're highlighting is Alta Vista Spark Innovation Center. So AOT, Alta Vista on Track, secured a $25,000 financial feasibility grant that helped the community identify the highest and best use for a former fire station and develop the plans needed to effectively begin the rehabilitation process. The former fire station just opened as the Spark Innovation Center, and that's a state-of-the-art co-working facility focused on supporting entrepreneurs and small business incubation. That's an exciting project for Alta Vista. Another exciting project that is moving along is Danville's White Mill building. So the River District Association, or RDA, utilized that $25,000 financial feasibility grant to conduct a feasibility study for the historic White Mill building, which will transform the iconic property into a multi-use residential and commercial space. So looking up recently on the progress of this, the first phase of the rehabilitation is currently estimated at $65 million upon completion, and progress is underway on this large, long vacant riverside structure. The White Mill building will be redeveloped into a multi-use project that initially will feature 147,000 square feet of commercial space and 150 apartments. Another 56 apartments are planned in a future phase, because just imagine the contribution this building that will make to the downtown economy. So then there's also Orange's Earl's Glass Shop Building. So Love Orange, Virginia received that $25,000 financial feasibility grant to identify the highest and best use to adaptively reuse the former Earl's Glass Shop Building and former gas station in downtown Orange, and to formulate the plans that will help the property owner redevelop the property or allow the local Main Street organization to shop the rehabilitation and reuse of the building to private developers. The feasibility study included a market study, business plan and pro formas, building code review, preservation analysis, scope of work, architectural schematic designs, and construction cost estimates for the best possible adaptive reuse for the building. And I'm going to pass it on to Ellie to talk about some of the funding priorities.
All right. So one moment. There we go. All right. So for our funding priorities, across all grant opportunities, Virginia Main Street is seeking projects that promote a community's unique identity-defying assets, both built and cultural. We're looking for projects that promote inclusive collaboration and engagement with a vast and diverse set of local partners, leaders, stakeholders, and residents. Promotes local entrepreneurs, small businesses, women and minority-owned businesses, entrepreneurial ecosystems, and small-scale development. Promotes equal access to opportunities and thoughtfully acknowledges and addresses diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility challenges and opportunities, and promotes the awareness, growth, and financial sustainability of the local Main Street organization. Next slide, please. And this is some additional information that is also applicable to all of the opportunities you just heard about. So to confirm your community's Virginia Main Street standing, you can use the interactive map on the Virginia Main Street website to confirm your community's participation level and tier in the Virginia Main Street program. DHCD has an agency-wide audit policy, and grantees must comply with the audit policy. All applicants must upload a copy of the organization Commonwealth of Virginia's W-9 and most recent audit or financial statements as applicable to the department's centralized application management system by the grant's application deadline.
All grantees that receive funding during a specific program year are required to submit financial documents or audits in accordance with the agency policy. The full DHCD audit policy, including an explanation for the specific documents required, can be found on our website and through that link. Applications for funding must be submitted through DHCD's centralized application management system, or CAMS, and you can access CAMS through the following link. Google Chrome is the recommended browser for CAMS, and please remember to save often. In order to access CAMS and complete an application for funding, a locality or organization must establish a CAMS profile. A profile request can be made by going to the CAMS site and selecting the registration option. In order to register your organization, you will need your organization's unique entity ID and federal employee identification number. Please allow up to 5 days for DHC to process and approve your registration request. Once your organization has been registered, you may log in with your username and password and select the Applications and Programs option. From this page, select the Apply option and select the program from the drop-down menu. A description of the program will appear. You can click the Apply button next to the pencil icon to begin an application. As you complete the application, again, be sure to save each page. You have the option to close out of CAMS and return to the application at any time until the application is submitted or if the deadline has passed. If you need additional instructions, you can access the CAMS user guide also via that link. Project-related in-kind services provided by the local government, consultants, and other Main Street stakeholders and partners may be used as match. Additionally, time contributed solely to the implementation of the project by volunteers in the Main Street organization or the organization partners may also be included as match. If the application is selected for funding, a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, between DHCD and the grantee must be executed, and the organization must be in compliance with DHCD's audit policy, which we just talked about, before any funds are dispersed. The MOU will outline project deliverables, conditions, fund disbursement, and termination. Reporting through CAMS is required for the projects, and this includes interim progress reports or a final report as outlined in the MOU. A portion of the awarded grant funds, up to 10% of the total award amount, must be used to cover administrative costs. The administrative section of the project budget will be based on activities completed or milestones achieved, such as completing project progress and final reports, rather than time and materials. These milestones are negotiated between DHCD and the grantee and outlined in the MOU. Grant funds will be dispersed as outlined in the MOU, and financial support documentation for all project-related expenses and leverage must be uploaded to CAMS prior to closeout as outlined in the MOU. Next slide, please. So one additional opportunity is MUMS, Mixed Use on Main Street, and this grant funds the activation of vacant or underutilized downtown spaces and creating opportunities for commercial development and housing units in Main Street districts. If you would like more information, you can check out the program guidelines, and we have done a how to apply webinar for this grant, and you can access a recording of that webinar through that link. Next slide, please. Does anyone have any questions?
And I just wanted to interject here really quickly. Again, the maximum awards. So for CVG, that's going to be 15,000 if you're exploring, 30,000 if you're mobilizing, 75,000 for dig grants, and 50,000 for financial feasibility grants. And all of these are at least double, if not more, the usual amount. And just for your information, the pool size for each of those grants for CVG, the pool size is about 330,000. For DIG, it's about 1,050,000. And for financial feasibility, it's about 425,000. And I know that Ashley had her hand raised. Ashley, what's your question?
Thanks. So for most of these grants, if not all of them, oh, there's an echo. I see that the deadline to start the programs is, I believe, October 1st or October 31st. I don't remember. So as you guys know, this past year, the DIG grants were not even announced until October. So I'm wondering if you guys have any sense of that timeline being a little bit different this year.
So that's a great question, Ashley. And believe it or not, for this funding round, we do have a little bit more flexibility on end times. The funds that are funding all of these grants, it's through the ARPA, so American Rescue Plan Act, and that gives us a little bit more flexibility on start and end times.
Great. Okay. So we'll just be flexible, you know, again, with whatever is handed down, and we'll make it work as we are now.
Yes, we'll definitely be in the make it work phase, and hopefully we won't have to wait so long for announcements next time.
All right. Thank you.
Andrea, you also had a question.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. I actually have a couple, but cut me off if you need to. I'm asking about the grants. I was curious if we're coming in as a partner on a project that we're not actually a lead for, does that muddy the waters because you said there's no pass-through, or are you considering pass-through that we would be applying for this grant so we can re-grant it to somebody else?
I think it's going to depend on the project, Andrea, but having subgrantees, particularly for business assistance, I know we've done that in the past. That's definitely an option. It just kind of depends on the overall structure of the project.
Okay. And are we allowed to count pledges as part of the match since we're actively fundraising now for a DIG park project?
I would say yes, you can count pledges for the match during the application, but when it comes to actually doing the work, before we can close that project, the pledges have to turn into cash.
Yeah, we'll need that too. And I also was curious, do you guys have budget templates available now?
Yes.
Okay, because some of these won't open in CAMS. And are you allowing the city to be the fiscal agent for the Main Street program applicant? Because our audit will not be completed by April 28th, but we are doing one. So we could apply as if you guys are okay with knowing that we'd submit the audit after we apply.
Yes, let's talk about that more offline so that I have a better sense of the nuances on that.
Okay. And my last question is, can we apply for 2 projects for DIG instead of just one?
You can absolutely apply for 2 projects. Just keep in mind that it's going to be very competitive and only one might be awarded.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yes. Heather? Heather Line?
Hey, I had a quick question. This is actually the mixed use on Main Street. And then I think just in general, when there are rolling deadlines, I think that could be a good fit for a potential project we have, but are you reviewing with that rolling deadline, like with feasibility and with mixed use on Main Street, are you reviewing things as they come in and kind of awarding as they come in? Okay, all right, thank you.
And we have fiscal year 23 financial feasibility funds available right now. So if you have a project right now that you're trying to queue up for mums, talk to your program administrator, but that's a possibility today.
Okay, thanks, Courtney.
Any other questions? And I should point out on this map, so we have it divided the staff into territories again. So now that Ellie has joined and is part of the team, we've now split the state into 5 different zones, one for each of the 5 program administrators. And feel free to look at the map, try and figure out where you fall in that. If you ever have a question, you can contact me. But these are the new reps, and we will definitely, for the advancing Main Street communities in particular, be doing more deliberate handoffs between program staff so that you are comfortable working with your new person if you have one, and I'm happy to be part of that transition and interaction as well. Next slide, please. So this is everyone's contact information, another rundown of the full team. Rebecca Rowe is still the associate director, and I know many of you know her from days of yore. I am the new program manager as of about 6 months ago, and Blair Bergler, Nicole Childress, Ellie Dudding McFadden, Kyle Meyer, and Zachary Whitlow, you've all met on this call. Blair's appearance today was a little bit shorter, but she is going to have a very long run at the Resurgence Grant How to Apply workshop this afternoon. So without any additional questions, we look forward to working with you on developing some fantastic projects for fiscal year 2024. Bye, everyone.